Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to our first meeting of January 2013. Today is January 8th, 2013. Happy New Year, everyone. It is approximately 6:32 in the evening. Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Cordova?
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Here.
Councilmember Peralta?
Here.
Councilmember Silva?
Here. And we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have the approval of the agenda. Is there any items that you would like to add to the agenda as presented or change to the agenda?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, just one item which I mentioned to you earlier is just recognizing Troop 98 from Taos.
We will do that right after the approval of minutes. That's okay. Welcome to our meeting.
Move for
Okay.
approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to approval of the minutes, the meeting minutes of November 27th, 2012, regular meeting minutes. Is there any changes to those minutes as presented?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
I have none, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to the meeting minutes of December 11th, 2012, the special meeting minutes. Any changes to those meeting minutes as presented?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor.
I have none, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to the meeting minutes of December 11th, 2012, regular meeting minutes. Any changes to those meeting minutes?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to the meeting minutes of December 19th, 2012, special meeting minutes. Entertain a motion to approve on those.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, at this time, I'd like to welcome Miss Jennifer Foley, the Assistant Scoutmaster for Troop 98 and her Boy Scouts. Welcome to our meeting, and it's great to see you participating in our civil government and how our government works. You are definitely our future leaders, and we welcome you to our meeting, okay? If you would want to say a few words, introduce them. Ma'am, Jennifer, if you can speak on the microphone, because you guys are all televised on TV.
Okay.
You're on TV.
You're on TV.
That's right, I forgot. Video. So we're Troop 98 from Taos, chartered by the Lions Club here in Taos. Our troop here is 40 or 50 years old, do you know?
Older.
Oh.
Yeah.
Old. 75, is that how long we've been chartered? Yeah. So these boys are working on their citizenship in the community, and this is one of the requirements to come to a town council meeting. And I thought it would be nice if they introduce themselves, tell you their rank, and then they're going to give you their scout oath, which is sort of what a Boy Scout lives by. There are other things too, but essentially that's it.
Okay, if you
Go
can,
for it, Isaac.
if each one of you guys come to the microphone and just state your name and proceed.
My name is Isaac, SD, and I am a second-class scout.
I am Kate Featherston, and I am a tenderfoot.
I am Iden Gates, and I am a Star Scout.
I'm Rowan Kinney, and I am a Star Scout. Hi, I'm Ryan Himes, and I'm a Star Scout.
Hi, my name is Ross Foley, and I am a Star Scout.
Great. Well, welcome to our meeting, and we hope that you participate in government as you grow older, and not only does it participate when it's a requirement of yours, but as a citizen, because we depend on input from our citizens to make responsible decisions. So thank you for your interest, and keep up the great work, and thank you for your commitment to the Boy Scouts. Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move on to the Citizens Forum. We have a couple of individuals signed up for the Citizens Forum. Mr. Mark Gordon of Santa Fe. Mr. Gordon, welcome to our meeting, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Cordova, Town Manager, council members, is it okay if I?
Sure.
About a month or so ago, I made a presentation for you about a film that I'm directing and producing for New Mexico PBS called Awakening in Taos. And after my presentation, Councilmember Peralta suggested that it would be difficult for you to really understand if you hadn't seen the film. So I left packets for you in your boxes, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see them, but with your permission, I'd be happy to send you an email tomorrow morning with a quick link and a copy of the proposal, if that's okay. Just to recap what my presentation was about, the film Awakening in Taos is the story of Mabel Dodge and Tony Lujan. It's also the story of Taos Pueblo and the return of Blue Lake. This is the second film in a series about Taos. The first film was Painting Taos, which was about the Taos Society of Artists. That was broadcast over 415 times and viewed by approximately 122,900,000 people. Our film has been in development for over 6 years now, and we believe that we're going to have a much greater audience with it, and it's also more of an international interest because we talk about the modern artists and the European artists that come here. One of the problems with the first film was that no one was invited to Taos. There was no website to go to. There was no invitation to come visit Taos for the adventure of a lifetime. And I've been working with Taos since the 70s when I drove tour buses from Santa Fe to Taos. And I know what people want to know when they come here, and I think that this film would be helpful in not only attracting attention to us, but in bringing informed visitors here. I've made a presentation to the Taos Lodgers Tax Board, and while at the present their funds are limited, I've been invited to submit a proposal to them to help sponsor the project in April. And I've also met with the New Mexico State Tourism Department, and they've invited me to submit a request for a $40,000 matching grant. We have one of the foundations in Taos, a private foundation that has given us $25,000 and will probably give us another this year. So that would mean that we're already $25,000 towards the matching grant. And my purpose for being here is to ask the town of Taos as well as the Lodgers Board to support this. And we might want to move this to another venue than this public venue so I could discuss it with you. I'm asking for, if possible, $5,000 to help us develop a sponsorship program so that the businesses that want to be involved in this project can benefit directly, and we can, by having at the beginning and the end of the film a heading that says, funds for this program were made possible by the town of Taos or the state of New Mexico. Please visit this website, and the website would direct to taos.org, and all of the participating sponsors would be recognized in it with links to their websites at different various levels. So I'm wondering if you have any questions or if you would like to move this to another venue.
Is there any questions, comments? Councilmember Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, what is the total budget for this project, and what sort of revenues have you received towards that budget at the present?
We, we've raised over $75,000 in cash. The total budget was $200,000. We've self-funded the project for the last 6 years, and we've been receiving grants. So at this point, we're looking to raise between $80,000 and $120,000
To finish,
finish it.
complete your budget.
to complete the project.
Okay.
And I think if we can get the matching grants, we'll have $80,000 with the matching grant. And then I think it would be very doable for us to raise the rest of the funds privately and through businesses that want to sponsor the project. I left with you all this information that's about the levels of sponsorship that we have for the individual businesses, and I'm hoping that the town would give me a letter of support that I could take to the businesses, and also when we apply for the matching funds with the state.
What is your target date for completing your budget?
For completing it, we're looking at June, July, the beginning of the fiscal year. And we're anticipating completion of it by the fall of this year. So that would bring us for broadcast roughly either in the late fall or early winter.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments?
I have no, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I would encourage you to meet with the manager to continue the dialogue. Of course, understanding that funds are real short now because of our decrease in GRT.
I do
and to see
understand
what the
that.
possibilities are.
That's why I'm going after all these matching funds.
Sure.
And with
Okay.
your permission, I'll shoot you an email tomorrow, and I'll be in touch with Oscar.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Mr. Jeff Northrop. Mr. Northrop, welcome to our meeting.
Can you give me 10 minutes to finish writing? Sorry about that. Thank you for having me. I provided each of you with 4 photographs on one sheet of paper that I took last Thursday morning, January 3rd, just before 7 a.m. The temperature was 13 degrees below zero. The man in the photo was named Roy, and the location is Salazar Road at Merced. My best guess is that he sold the Taos News at this intersection for about 18 months. He walks very slowly with a cane and can barely lift his feet off the ground. He stores his papers on a utility box about 6 feet behind the curb. He only holds one paper at a time, so must climb the curb, often dealing with ice and snow every labored step of the way, 80 trips a morning if he sells each of his papers. The Taos News delivery truck drops him off before 7 a.m. and picks him up at noon. If he sells all his papers, he'll make $40, plus tips, if any. He has no shelter for his entire shift. Somehow, he seems to show a positive spirit. He does the best that he can to shuffle along and avoid holding up traffic, but dealing with a slow gait, a cane, heavy gloves, holding a newspaper, handling money, and a stiff body is a painful sight to watch, if not experience. These pictures show the ice on his face, dangling from his beard, but the Taos News apparently has no problem sending this beleaguered individual and others like him out to face the brutal elements for their own personal financial gain, not a drop of humanity with this organization. I've often spoken to this body on the dangers to the public that the Taos News street vendors present, in addition to tying up traffic as they make change, converse with customers, and scurry through traffic. Instead of wasting your time and punishing local businesses by rewriting the sign code to keep me from expressing my constitutional rights of free speech, I again ask that you deal with the inhumanity and dangers that the Taos News brings to us every Thursday. Kit Carson Electric continues to be a heavy advertiser on DMC Broadcasting. Most recently, 2 to 3 weeks of ads encouraged listeners to submit an application to fill an empty Kit Carson Electric board seat. The community knew well ahead of time that the decision as to who would fill the commissioner's vacant seat would be before the expensive ads began. The deal had already been cut, and the ads were a waste of time. The ad running now encourages people to seek capital credits on behalf of co-op members who may have died. This type of information would be best be passed along with a statement in our monthly electric bill envelope. Kit Carson Electric is wasting our money for no reason beyond cementing the buddy relationship between Mayor Cordova and the Kit Carson Electric CEO, Luis Reyes. And finally, one question you might ask, or one issue you might address, is what happened to the quarterly citizens forum. Thank you.
Okay, next, on the citizens forum, we don't have anyone signed up for the citizens forum. Is there anyone else that would like to speak under the citizens forum at this time? Seeing none, we will close the citizens forum, and I'll ask the council to suspend the rules so that we can move agenda item 8A, the liquor license, the public hearing, to the beginning of the agenda before we get into the other matters, so that these folks can, they're from Albuquerque and they can travel back to Albuquerque.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we'll go to public hearings. Liquor license transfer of ownership and location, Allsup's Convenience Stores Incorporated, consideration and approval of transfer of ownership and location of liquor license 288 from Best Western Casino Lodge located at 413 Paseo del Pueblo Norte to Allsup's Convenience Stores located at 319 Paseo del Pueblo Sur, Taos, New Mexico. Oscar?
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, has the applicant met all the requirements thus far? Before I open it up to the, and then I'll ask for comments. All the requirements have been met?
Yes, they have.
Okay. We'll proceed with the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Cordova and other councilors. Actually, we're from Clovis, which is the headquarters of Allsup's Convenience Stores, so we do have a rather long drive back, and I appreciate you allowing us to go early. Now, on a personal note, I can tell you that I spent many years up here with two boys learning to ski at Taos Ski Valley, and they both became expert skiers, and my youngest son, who lives again in Clovis, is now this winter going to start a 2- and 4-year-old over the same process. So we have fond memories about Taos. I'm just sorry Michael's Kitchen didn't open in the evening, or we'd stop before we left. I'm General Counsel for Allsup's Convenience Stores. The application before you is to purchase a local license, 288, which is being moved from the owner of the license currently is a company named Coba LP, doing business as Kachina Lodge, to our current store 319, which is located at 1050 Paseo de Puerto Sur, Taos. There's currently a liquor license there. It is a license that can be issued, that can be used anywhere in the state of New Mexico. So what we're really doing is taking a license from that store, and that store license will be suspended while it's moved to another location, either in Taos or in the state. And the local license can only be used in Taos County, so it's that's the license that'll be moved there. We've met all the requirements, we think. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Allsup's has been in Taos for a long time and tends to be here even longer, and so it's really just a change of the type of license that's being used. It'll be for the sales of store sales only, as always with Allsup's.
So let me ask, the Allsup's that we're talking about is the southern?
Yes, sir, it's the southern one. Okay. The northern one there's some churches and things nearby.
And I thought they already had a liquor license, but it's a different type of license?
It's a what you call a general universal license, and it can be moved anywhere in the state.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So what they're doing is freeing that license up to go elsewhere in the state, or perhaps into Taos if they're able to find a location, a suitable location. So that's really, it's kind of almost an administrative change in that sense. It won't change anything other than one day to be licensed 288 from old license 4006.
Okay. Okay.
And for the record, Mayor, if I may, staff has no problem whatsoever with this proposal, request.
Okay. Councilmember Peralta?
Mr. Mayor, I think you want to open it up for public input first, and then I'll ask my question.
Okay, we'll do that. At this time, it is a public hearing. I'd like to open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this liquor license transfer? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and go to questions from the council. Councilmember Gonzalez, I believe you had a question. Councilmember Peralta.
I have two things. One is, Madam Clerk, if you could change the agenda and the address is not 319, that's the store number, and then put in there 1,000
I'm sorry, the
something.
store number, I'm sorry. I
No,
misspoke.
that's all right. Our information on our agenda is incorrect, and we're gonna need to get that corrected for
It
the
is
record.
store 319.
Okay.
Store 319.
The other question I had was, this license that's being transferred from the Kachina, does that mean that there will be no longer a license at the Kachina?
I don't know exactly what, Mr. Coop, who's the owner of the Kachina, and is the general partner, and the current owner, which is a company called Cope LP, I don't know exactly. I understand he's going to be obtaining he told me, a beer and wine license to continue operations there. He's here in case you might have a question for him, but that's my understanding.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions from the council? If not, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Since it is a public hearing, clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Peralta?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
By the vote of 3 in the affirmative, none in the negative, the license transfer is approved. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, do you have the license here? Usually when the individuals are from out of town, I sign it that night so that they can take it with them.
No, I don't
Okay,
have it.
then I'll go ahead and sign it and get it to the Mr. Coop immediately, as soon as possible. Yeah, the approval. Alcohol and gaming, yeah. Many times the applicant will want me to sign it right away so that they could take it, so. Okay, thank you. Thank you and good luck. Okay, next, we will go to item 7A. I'd like to welcome CEO Luis Reyes from Kit Carson Electric and his wife Francine to our meeting, and also Steve Fullendorf, welcome to our meeting. Mr. Reyes, welcome to our meeting, sir. This is to provide an update regarding Kit Carson's electric broadband project.
Yes, sir. Good evening to the mayor and council. Happy New Year to everybody. To watch out what I say, I'm getting my advertising limited, not Taos News, no DMC. I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
I think
we'll
the
figure it
gentleman
out.
before was got his meetings confused. He should have been at a Kit Carson meeting, I
Yes,
guess.
they could go to our meeting too. They're always open. What I want to do, Mr. Mayor, is give an update of our broadband project, but also continuing on different projects that affect the town and the outlying areas. You know, the co-op has been very successful in its solar program. One of the national leaders when it comes to solar development and integration in solar. Our system gets better and better all the time. We want to go over the system improvements. I think that was also acknowledged by the gas company when they had their problem just a couple days ago. They called us to make sure we were ready, just in case. You know, our dispatch has been working for about a year, has a lot of benefits that have given our employees anywhere from safety to better reliability. We had some of the lowest outage hours in the country for co-ops this past year. And I attribute that to the employees of the co-op and the tools we have. And then, you know, the big project that people want to talk about all the time is the broadband and the fiber project. I apologize I don't have handouts for everybody, but I will email a handout to everybody so you have this program. And what I want to do is give you a status. First, everyone knows that the project entails taking fiber optic to every home and business, government entity, any entity or individual that has a meter will have fiber optic to that location. And it's a fiber to a home project, means it's not going to go to the curb and then you have to worry about getting it into the home. It goes right into the wall. Part of that is for our smart grid so that we can read meters, energy efficiency, load control, help members with their electric needs. The other is to give opportunities for access to high speed, and I mean true high speed connectivity. I think one of the benefits that is lost in this is from an economic development perspective, even though Kit Carson will own and maintain the infrastructure, any qualified third party can serve you. So if there is a member who doesn't want Kit Carson Internet and wants TaosNet or wants CenturyLink, they can get on our network and for a fee get your service. It does a few things. It enters competition, true competition into our marketplace. With competition, we think services get better. And if we can encourage local companies, local ISPs to expand, that helps the economic base, given that we're all faced with decreasing kilowatt-hour sales at the co-op, decreasing GRT at the town. So we both have financial hurdles that we need to solve. But we believe they're not unsolvable. So that's the core. The other basic premise of the project was to get to anchor institutions. Anchor institutions being hospitals, police stations, fire departments, municipal buildings, county buildings, rural health clinics, so that the public safety, the public service infrastructure had access to high-speed connectivity. And if you follow grants and programs coming out of the FCC today, or yesterday, they just announced a $400 million rural healthcare connectivity award. So local clinics can go after this money to get connected, let's say, to Holy Cross Hospital, which would help Holy Cross if they have a wider network that is tied via the internet. The reality is, looking forward, in our estimation, broadband services, the broadband economy is what's going to drive a lot of our economy. There isn't anything that we don't do today, or mostly anything. You know, we still have to dig with the backhoe, but everything's app-driven. You get an app for this, and you get an app for that, and you get an app to check your weight, and you get an app. There's a new fork out that will tell you how many times you chew, and it tells you if you're chewing too fast. And it vibrates if you're chewing too fast, so you don't get indigestion. But we think this is the future for this county. The other thing too that I think is important to be aware of is when this project is done, this will be the most wired community in the state of New Mexico. It won't be Albuquerque, and it won't be Farmington, and it won't be Roswell or Artesia, the areas that you generally think, because they have more money, oil and gas, maybe more affluent, more population. This kind of levels the playing field when it comes to this type of economic stimulus or opportunity. And before I get into the specifics, this is also tied to a ReadyNet project. And some of you may be aware of the ReadyNet project. It's a project, a fiber project, a sister project of Kit Carson, in which we will tie with them in Espanola, and this gets us right into Santa Fe. And so from your home in wherever it's at, all the way back to Santa Fe will be a true fiber connection. There won't be a combination of fiber with copper with wireless, or just copper. It will be a true fiber network. And with a true fiber network getting to Santa Fe, then the internet markets are open. Today we are negotiating a deal with a group out of Phoenix to offer our content or our bandwidth. And so it does open up, rather than just going to Albuquerque or Santa Fe and getting to those markets, which means that the price of broadband is going to be cheaper. Currently, we have two main contractors working, Atlantic Engineering Group. They are overhead contractor. Their focus is primarily and only the overhead, and we started with them in the outlying areas. So they have completed the Amalia Costilla area, and they're coming into Cuesta, and then they'll hit Hondo. During the summertime, there'll always be a presence within the town of Taos, just because this is where the population center is. But one of the things the co-op board wanted to make sure we did moving forward is not create the same construction or business model that our competitors or the big incumbents do, is focus on the more populated areas and forget about the outlying areas. And what happens is, if you do that, then the people in Costilla and Amalia, Peñasco, kind of the ends of our system get left out. And ours was, we weren't going to create that model because there's a lot of opportunities in those areas for broadband connectivity that today are commonplace. Example is the gas station in Costilla. It doesn't have a card reader in its pumps because it doesn't have enough connectivity to get the credit card authorized. Things that simple, that you have a main thoroughfare of people going from here to Walsenburg or Denver, stopping there, but if you don't have cash, it's hard to do business if their credit card machine isn't working because they don't have the connectivity. Things that we're taking for granted but really affect that business. They have completed about 30 miles of fiber. Once they get really going, currently they have four crews. They want to ramp up to 12 crews. We can get about 30 to 50 miles a month. Their project is about a 2,000 mile project, so it should be complete by the end of 2013, early 2014. The other thing tied to the overhead is we had to reinitialize or re-register for some permits. So all the Forest Service permits, BLM permits, anything doing with federal properties under the stimulus rules, we had to re-permit even though we had an existing permit. Don't know the rationale for that. Don't really try to get into the mind of the government when it gets to some of the NEPA, some of the environmental standards. But we got the Forest Service permit today was approved. We're now in a 45-day grace period. So everyone can get make sure that everything's signed and all our documents in place. We should have the BLM permit in about 30 days. We've got the permit from the Taos Pueblo. The only federal permit we do not have today is the Picaris Pueblo, and we are negotiating with Picaris for their for access to their properties. And all that happens if we don't get the permit is they go to the end of the line. It doesn't stop the project, it just means that you're at the end of the line. But with these permits from the Forest Service and BLM, it means we can start bringing in the fiber into the town of Taos because you have to cross the Rio Grande from Espanola to get into the town of Taos, so we can get our path out of this enchanted circle. Our underground is TCS Communication. They've been the most active. Their contract is about 800 miles of underground line. All falls under existing rights-of-way. To date, they've completed just under 200 miles, so they're about 25% complete, which I think is especially impressive given that no one really has taken on a project of this scope. Just imagine building a 2,800 mile network in 2 years, something that has taken the co-op 60 years to build on the electric side, something that's taken CenturyLink the same time to build on the telephone side. In 60 years, we're compressing in 2 years in areas that is already developed. Really, the biggest problem we've had, two biggest problems we've had with the underground have been with the restoration of properties that we've gone by and sometimes not to the satisfaction of the owner. So we've been working with them on that. And really the permits at the county. The town has been excellent in working with. Under the franchise, I've worked with the mayor on developing a better franchise for the telecommunication side. And I'll share some numbers of what the franchise does on the electric to give you what the mayor potential on the telecom side could be for a franchise opportunity. We're currently working on the underground. We're working in the Arrondo, Arroz Seco, Los Cordovas, Taos County, Taos Country Club, Black Lake, Angel Flower, and the Weimer area, and Cuesta. And we'll start moving into the town of Taos. Town of Taos a little bit different because there's more paved roads. So there'll be more directional boring than actual trenching. And that is really to mitigate any destruction, damage. But it should go quickly. And so that's the area we're working there. And then this spring, we will start Taos Pueblo. And we're hoping with the build a Taos Pueblo that we can, again, encourage some local economic development at the Pueblo that complements some of their local economic efforts today via the broadband. Some of the important facts that don't want to be left out is to date, this project has employed 186 full-time employees via contractors. So you have the two prime contractors, then under them and engineers and warehouse and contractors, we have 186 employees, not including the marketing and ad efforts, which will probably start commencing now in February, March timeframe. We're getting pretty close to that time where we can start lighting up certain areas as pilots. We currently do have a pilot program in the Pot Creek area over our fiber, in which we're offering SMU and the residents in that area speeds 2 or 3 times faster than actually CenturyLink can get them today, because CenturyLink has no facilities in that area other than just twisted pair for phone. And so SMU would be a good resource to talk to about how that's working. They do a lot of work with the main campus in Dallas. They do it via FaceTime and Skype, and it's amazing how clear that video transmission is if you have enough bandwidth. To date, there has been 4.8 million in local payroll to the project. There has been a little over $500,000 in rents and utilities to the project. About $435,000 in meals and lodging. $278,000 in vehicle expense. $620,000 in local purchases, and about $730,000 in miscellaneous other expenses that contractors are buying and purchasing, primarily within the town of Taos. Most of them headquartered in the town of Taos. So out of this project so far, $8.4 million of about $16 million. So far, $16 million have been spent on the project. The project's a $64 million project, so we're about 25% complete. 8.4 of that has been left in locals. The difference is the prime contractors and their profit. The material, the fiber's not manufactured in New Mexico. In fact, it's in North Carolina and Japan. Those are the two hubs for fiber. And then engineering services, a lot of engineering services. Initially, we couldn't get here. One of the things we found out, Mayor, in this kind of real-life analysis is the skill sets that we don't have that people are requiring. And one is telecom and electrical engineering. There could have been some opportunities if we had those skill sets here in the surrounding areas for good jobs. The other thing that we found is that there's not a lot of telecom or linemen in the area outside of who work at the co-op. But that's one area that we've had to import people from outside, which we didn't want to, but those are tied to safety and expertise. The areas that we're going to be completing in 2013, I've just talked to. The others that we're going to keep on working in 2012 into 2013, we're going to finish Somalia and Hondo. We're going to be concentrating on the town of Taos. Our goal is by the end of 2013, the town of Taos, Red River, Cuesta, and Angel Fire, the municipalities will be complete with fiber pulled and with services offered. The services that we're offering are, it's a triple play. One is going to be, of course, data, high-speed internet, and that's all scalable. People ask us what the speeds are. We'll have a entry fee of, speeds of 1 and 2 megabits up and down. We can go to 10 up and down. Depends on what that business or that individual's application is. And then we're working currently with UNM that needs gigabit speeds. Those are speeds that are really out of our realm of, we couldn't use them at a home, but a university needs those type of speeds. The second would be a telecommunications product or a telephone over the internet. And you know, its acronym is VoIP, Voice over IP. Most of them just, it's a telephone. We're trying to package that with cell phone minutes so that you can use that bandwidth at the home, but then transfer that bandwidth to your cell phone, because most phones now are based on megabits versus minutes. If you have a smartphone, that's how they're packaging that. And so we have to be ready to be able to offer those type of services. Then the third would be television or entertainment. So we have an application with NTCA, that's a National TV Association. It'll be a direct TV equivalent. So, you know, if it's a 200 channel package or whatever package that people want, it's on hardwire, and it's local. I think one of the benefits is being a co-op and under a co-op structure, rate of return is important just to pay off our debt and make sure we have enough for system improvements, have quality employees, and the rest needs to be returned to the members, either in lower cost or capital credit. So off the top, we feel that our price breaks will easily be 10 to 15% cheaper than what people can get on the market today. With that, I just wanted to give you a general overview. In the packet that I do send you, there will be budgets. I mean, there's been some criticism of the co-op, somehow the government giving the co-op $64 million without putting a pro forma budget together and analysis. We're at the point where we can start releasing those. Those were dictated by the federal government because this is a competitive environment. And we have an obligation to the federal government to pay that $19 million back. They want to make sure that we don't kind of tip our hand to make sure that we lose our leverage when it comes to having the ability to pay at least that portion back. The final thing I'd like to touch on, if I can find it here, is the franchise tax and the tax issue. So Kit Carson currently has 6 franchise agreements with all the municipalities. And since 2008 to current, or 11 months in 2012, based on the revenues of the town of Taos, we have paid the town of Taos about $1.1 million. In comparison, the second highest is the village of Angel Fire, in which we pay about $600,000 over that same 5-year period. The town of Taos, on average, we pay them back about $210,000 to $220,000 in franchise fees. And so, I guess part of the illustration is looking at ways. Again, I've had discussions with your manager of ways of internally generating more funds, and it is a tax, but it's a tax tied to a service that people want, whether it's electricity, whether it's broadband. And as we move forward, I think we need to look at those more in detail, because I do think it's a good revenue stream for some of the shortfalls that any municipality or village may encounter. From the co-op's perspective, we think it's good business. If we're utilizing the rights of way and utilizing public access, then there should be a cost associated to that. All we've ever asked is that same cost is assigned to our competitors. So if CenturyLink or Comcast or somebody else is using the same rights way we are, they should pay. That should be level. So the playing field is level, then everything is based on service. I think if you took those 3 entities and really looked at those franchise agreements hard and made sure that they're fair both for the village town and fair for the co-op and the members, I think it turns out to be a win-win when you're looking down the road as we start deploying some of these services. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because again, the co-op over the past 5 years, with franchise fees, with property taxes, with payroll taxes, has probably paid $20 million. Our members pay about $4 million a year in taxes to support a lot of the things that the town and the different jurisdictions fund. And I think it's important that that is known, of the amount of taxes this entity pays to make sure we support the town and the other 6 municipalities, and also the three counties, Colfax, Rio Arriba, and Taos County, that we operate and do business in. And with that, Mr. Mayor, entertain any questions or any comments relative to the presentation. I will get you this in hard copy, so you will have to share with your constituents.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councilmember Peralta?
Yeah, I just have one question, Luis, and that is, when the fiber comes up to a property line, a private property, is there a permission that's required from that property owner to run that then into the residence?
Yes.
And that'll be taking place at the time that you're ready to do that?
At the time we're ready to do that, there'll be permission needed. Now, for the electric portion, and that's where it kind of gets gray, under the PRC rules, if it's tied to read the meter, then the easement is granted in the same route, but it can't be used for communication. So the permit we'd be asking for, the easement, is for the communication side of it, more the commercial side. At that point, we'll discuss with the landowner which is the best way to get into the home, because the electric may come at a different location other than where you want the internet connection to come in. The other thing that may occur is you may have provider X be your internet provider. You want the fiber, but he may want to help consult in where you bring that fiber in. And so there will be a lot of consultation with the landowners when we get to that point. And again, our contractors I think they're getting used to that idea that there's a lot of communication. Once we do that and execute the document, then we'll install the fiber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Councilmember Gonzalez?
Luis and Steve, thank you guys for coming to our meeting. The more I hear about the possibilities that broadband will bring to Taos, the more excited I get. So I thank you guys for taking the initiative to bring this to Taos. We're in a really, really tough economic situation, not just here in Taos, but all across the country. And I think anything that we can do to harvest to bring more opportunity, especially to northern New Mexico, the better off we are. And the one thing that, I'd always heard in business school was in some instances, people will trade the quality of life from a big city to a small town. And if you can mix and mesh the two of them together, then, there's no reason why, a high-capacity call center couldn't come to Taos and occupy a building in that trade-off for, being in the hustle and bustle of a city, because now they have the ability and the infrastructure to do the work that needs to be done. So I think with that, we create economic development, we stimulate growth within our own community. Like you said, it's going to bring opportunities now for linemen, telecommunications linemen, and again, on the TV side. So I want to applaud you guys again for what you've done and what you continue to do for this community. And I know myself as a counselor, as an elected official, I'll do whatever I can to push the gap also on the solar cap, because I think that's important. With the amount of clear days and clear skies that we have here, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to harvest some of that energy. And I think that's a good thing that you guys are doing. So again, thank you for all the efforts that you've done, and again, thank you for the briefing that you've given us tonight.
And Councilman Gonzalez, I want to reiterate, this is merely a tool. It's only going to be as good as the elected officials make it. And so if you have a good economic development position or policy or direction, I think you'll maximize a tool. But if you don't, it's just gonna stay and be used so people can watch Netflix. And that may be important, but I think how we manage this tool as a community, and I think there's opportunities at this point through maybe the IGC to get together and see what type of businesses do we want to attract to Taos that fit the Taos profile. We're not going to get a big manufacturing company that uses a lot of water. emits a lot of, pollution. That's a reality. What do we do to support the existing businesses here within the town of Taos that can use, this bandwidth? And I guess that would be, you said, if there's anything, ask us. I think it's really the elected officials getting, with their leadership, getting a comprehensive economic development plan with just not tourism being one of the legs of the stool and construction, but also broadband. Because when one of the stools is wobbly, we tend to then, it's an emergency. But if we have something to fall back on that, broadband is weather neutral. It's pretty neutral on everything. It's become the communications mechanism via Facebook and Twitter. Just think of the last kind of party that you went to, and half a dozen people while you're talking to them are checking their text and checking their phone, and that's the way people live now. That's broadband. That's connectivity. So I think that would be one of the asks of the city council, is really to look hard at the economic development plan you have, and how can we integrate the broadband infrastructure that is being brought to this community so you can maximize and kind of build from within. There's not any more handouts. You can't go to Washington and get a lot of money. We have to generate that from collective partnerships within the Enchanted Circle.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Reyes, Mr. Frondorf, thank you very much for a great presentation. I think every time you come forward and talk to us about this project, people become to see it a little bit more clearly and how it's going to benefit our community. One of the things I really appreciate is the fact that in the interim, we're looking at that economic boost that we needed so desperately in our local economy. But what we have to see that yet to come is what it's going to do for our children, for our quality of life, for our school systems, our educational systems across the board, UNM, our medical field. I mean, I think that there's just so much more that it's just hard to wrap our head around right now. But this thing is a great thing, and we appreciate all you do and send that message along to the board. Kit Carson, we appreciate them and what you've done for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, on behalf of our citizens, I just really want to thank the leadership, your leadership, Luis, and the board's leadership, and the vision, the foresight that you all saw in making this happen. When President Obama announced the stimulus funds and the federal government announced the stimulus funds, we all had a round table, all the stakeholders in our community. And I just want to reiterate that because I think it's very important because there's just a few individuals that I think just don't understand the significance and the support that the broadband had and still has to date. We all got together and everyone decided how we were going to approach the government as a region to show our needs and to get our fair share of stimulus funds. Whether you agree with the stimulus funds or you don't, we wanted to make sure we got our fair share. The town of Taos did benefit and we got our fair share, but we went on our own path. The county, I'm sure they went on their own path. I think each entity, even though we had that roundtable discussion, it was determined that broadband was probably one of the most important things that we can ask for as a region. However, we all have our needs, and we did get our fair share, over probably $7 million in stimulus funds, probably, or even more. But I'd like to thank Kit Carson Electric and your leadership for remaining focused and continuing on this mission to benefit the whole community. This was $40 million plus in free money from the government. Well, it's taxpayers' money. But we got our share, and we're going to benefit from that, and we're going to be on the cutting edge of technology. And to say that we have the best infrastructure in the state as far as broadband, that's something to brag about, and it was attributed to your leadership, and we fully support that. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation as well. Thank you. Okay, next we will go to item
B, 7B.
So we have, speak picking up technology. I'm still using my paper and I still have my. We have item B, road closures. Consideration and approval of road closures and the anticipated road closures for public events during the 2013 calendar year. At the beginning of each calendar year, the council has historically approved the known annual road closures. Manager.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, as item there, as explained in the item there, this is an item that, it's off, sorry. Yes, this is an item that comes before the council once a year for the benefit of the council as well as those who over the course of the year want a street closed. So what you have here is just the list of all the street closures that are being requested for the year so that you can do them all at once and see and be able to tell everybody at any given, for the rest of the year which ones will be closed.
Okay.
Stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking at this and just noticed now that the annual fiestas is not on the list for the plaza closure.
There is a fiesta parade.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
But the plaza is closed for 2 days, 2.5 days?
And that is a road, so that is a town.
So we could have the parade, but we won't be able to have the fiestas unless the cars can go through there.
I think we can amend that. Huh?
Yes,
I think we can
appropriate at that point to amend it. Yes, sir. Sorry for missing that.
I just noticed it now. I looked at this a couple of days ago and didn't see it, and I just saw it now.
Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, with that amendment, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries as amended. Next, we will go to item C, resolution 1302, waiver to contract with immediate family member of town employee. Consideration and approval of resolution 1302 waiving the provisions of town code regarding contracting with an employee, immediate family member of a current town of Taos employee. The town proposes to contract with Chris Padilla, DBA Northern Fire Suppression, related to Rene Lucero, for the purposes of servicing all town of Taos fire extinguishers as required by the National Fire Protection. Northern Fire Suppression was the lowest bidder. Members of the council, this is procedural. Anytime that there is an immediate family member and they are the lowest bidder, we do need to issue a waiver. I just want to remind the council that this is local funds. Had it been state funds, a waiver, there's no such thing as a waiver. We cannot, correct, attorney? If it's anything administered through DFA, there's no, it's a new rule.
Yeah.
A couple of years old, probably. So, Councilmember Peralta?
Mr. Mayor, just a question. The members of our fire department are not certified to do these inspections? Or is it something that you really wouldn't do anyway because it's like doing your own home?
Yeah, well, actually, there's a number of things to take into account here, Councilmember, which is why we're.
The first thing that comes to my mind would be a
That's what I'm
conflict.
thinking of too. That's why I wanted to come out publicly that it isn't something we do in-house for ourselves, because it could be a conflict of interest, or even not protecting ourselves because if somebody wanted to say, yeah, it's okay, but it really isn't, simply would not suffice for us for public safety.
Well, not so much that. I do have, our fire chief, administrative fire chief is here to answer those specific questions, but really this is a matter of of manpower. There are, remind me again, 300 of these pieces, both in cars, in buildings, all different kinds, et cetera. And so there is an expertise that goes along with that, and someone to be able to stay on top of that. On top of that, that they're working, the liability and the assurance that they're working, we'd like to have a company who's responsible for that to be able to certify that to us. Of course, we can go around and check all of these periodically. it would take, it would divert a lot of manpower that we have right now at the fire department. So it's not so much the conflict of interest there, but rather it's just for us to be able to stay on top of all these fire hydrants, fire extinguishers throughout the town. Chief, if you've got anything more you want to add to that.
Other than you need special certifications to do this testing on these fire extinguishers. What all is involved in it? There's only one company in Taos County that does it. We found another one in Santa Fe and one out of Clovis, I believe, that actually have rolling vans that come out and do, they gotta weigh so much and everything in order for them to test them, and they go and they tag them once a year, and the tags are good for every year, and this has to be done on a yearly basis to all businesses in Taos County.
So if we did it, we'd pretty much have to dedicate a person to do this year-round.
Probably more than one person to do that, yes, sir.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, could you explain in a little bit more detail what it entails in the servicing of these extinguishers?
On the servicing part, to my understanding, council member, what they do is they put them on a scale and they weigh them, and they have some machine that shakes them around that they can test them, and also what they can do is recharge them off of some equipment that they have in their mobile vans that they go around and do this testing. It's gotta have I don't know exactly the correct formula for it, but it's gotta have a certain formula in order for it to be able to, certain amount of under pressure in order to throw it out, and how much of it comes out of there at the time, and also the direction of the spray on it as well. There's quite a bit into that as far as I don't have the exact formula down as far as how they do that, though.
This, Mr. Mayor, this particular contractor, are they one of the requirements? Are they do they have to be bonded and insured?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and there's some qualifications that go along with that. Not to mention he has all the specialty equipment.
Yes, and also they need to be certified by the State Fire Marshal's Office, which I've got certificates of that as well.
Okay.
And they got to renew those every year on a yearly basis as well. They're
So-
certificates through the State Fire Marshal's Office.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I guess my comment on on the conflict, or I think it's more of a checks and balances. When you have a third party checking those,
And that's the first line as far as firefighting, fire prevention. I mean, you see something happening outside your office, you have an extinguisher, you grab it until we get there and take care of the rest of the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What is the pleasure of the council?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Under discussion, what's the amount of the contract?
2,000.
2,000. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Resolution 1304, intergovernmental transfer of personal property, consideration and possible approval of 1304. Resolution 1304 approving the intergovernmental transfer of a 2003 Ford 15-passenger bus to the village of Taos Ski Valley. Oscar?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this bus has no value to us, the town. Ski Valley apparently feels that they can refurbish this and put this to use, and we are happy to provide it to them.
Mr. Mayor, I only have one question. Does it run?
Yes, it runs enough. It'll get up the hill, and from that point on,
It's their
it's
baby.
theirs. Yes.
It'll make it up the hill?
Yes.
So are we being nice to the Ski Valley, or are we being good neighbors?
No, actually, we're being a little self-interested here, Mr. Mayor. Not only will this free up some space, some hangar space at the fleet building, but also this will help Ski Valley bring more people down here, and hopefully they will buy and enjoy what's for sale in Taos, and by that way contribute some GRT. So it's helping we're really helping ourselves here.
So it does have some value.
Oh, it has, yes. Well,
just not in our hands. I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
Well, in that case, Mr. Mayor, move for approval.
Motion
Second.
to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to Resolution 1305, hiring an immediate family member of a current town employee. Consideration and approval of Resolution 1305, Town of Taos Town of Taos proposes to hire Stephen Lucero as a police cadet with the police department. Stephen is the son of current town employee Dolores Lucero, who works for the finance department. The employment of Stephen Lucero would not create a direct or indirect supervisory or subordinate relationship, nor create an actual conflict of interest or the appearance of conflict of interest. Oscar.
Yes, sir. This is, as you just read it there, it's procedural. We have to come to the council and ask specific permission to bring somebody on who is related, already has a relative. We see no conflict at all. Of course, we want to recruit
Just for
this position.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. Just for the public's information, I'm very comfortable as mayor of the vetting process that goes on in any hire that goes in my desk. I know that they've gone through a committee, and that we're selecting always the most qualified person for the position. And that's something that I think that under this administration we pride ourselves with, and that continues to move forward. It is a small town, and occasionally we will get some of these things coming up to the council. So just wanted to say that for the record. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, just a question. How many more open positions do we have with the PD?
At this stage, we're looking at two more positions, three positions that are open, which may very well be closed shortly. We have committed to you to be fully staffed such that we could go on to the new schedule starting March the 1st, and we're on track for that.
Great. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
We did have a couple of certified officers that applied to come back to return to the town. Is that moving forward as well?
Yes, including an officer that left here about a year ago, 2 years ago, and went to work for the state.
Ms.
And
Daniel.
she saw things changed and turned up well enough that she came back.
Okay.
Mr.
We're happy to
Mayor,
have her.
council members, we are testing those applicants on Tuesday, next Tuesday.
So there's more than one. Oh,
There's,
We have two applicants out of what was originally four, Mr. Mayor. When we contacted those applicants today, we were advised that they had either accepted positions elsewhere or were no longer interested.
we actually had a total of 5 certified applicants, and out of those 5, 2 will be interviewing next Tuesday.
If you could do me a favor, I'd like to know who those are. I know they're in the vetting process now, but.
One is former employee Janny Davis, and the other,
Well, I didn't know if you can disclose them now at this point, so during the vetting process.
Probably shouldn't at this point.
okay.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, neither one of you.
Mr. Mayor, I was just, you already mentioned one, but so I can understand this, they're former employees of the Taos PD.
Right.
Some of
least one.
The 2 that we will be interviewing on Tuesday are.
Well, that sure is a change from what we've seen in the past where they leave. So this is welcome news and tribute to the new direction and the leadership. So thank you.
Right, Mayor, council members, they left. They found that the grass isn't greener on the other side. They want to come back.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Loretta. Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor. Second.
Motion and a second. Councilmember Silva made the motion. Gonzalez making the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item F, Resolution F. Item F, Resolution 1307, Town of Taos Legislative Agenda. Consideration and possible approval of Resolution 1307, establishing the Town of Taos 2013 Legislative Agenda.
Mr. Mayor, as you know, the town has retained the services of a lobbyist, or someone who represents us in front of the state and the state offices and the legislature. And with this resolution, what I'm just going to try and establish an annual practice so that you give specific direction to both our lobbyists and as well as to the staff should we ever come before the state for any reason, that it would be clear to us what are your priorities. And so I have put some of the priorities there that the council has communicated already. Some of them are pretty obvious. For example, the very first one there, just to make sure that, you know, where we can, to make sure that the hospital has the funding it needs to cover indigent healthcare costs. And then the two other items there are items standard also to see what we can do to move projects that the Department of Transportation already has on their capital program, to see what we can do to move them up, including what is called the Highway 68, 64 corridor study, which may some of you, in fact, have explained to me what that study involves, possibly making a one-way from the intersection of Paseo Sur, going through the narrow part of town, and then having Placitas, or Camino de la Placita, be sort of the one-way coming the other direction, so that traffic can flow a lot more rapidly there. So anyway, and so I put those up there. Obviously, if you at this moment want to add other ones, or want to take some of those out, this is the process, so that it's very transparent. We know, our lobbyist knows. I have sent this document to our lobbyist. He's very comfortable with them. He was going to try to be here tonight. At the last minute, he said that he had a meeting with a significant member of the legislature, and so he thought that he would be serving us best if he made that meeting instead of coming here. But he's comfortable with things that are on there now.
Okay. On this, Oscar, I know they've studied that corridor plan for, especially the one-way. I'm just wondering if if our resources, I think that could be done, perhaps maybe not as a legislative agenda, but I think maybe advancing the signalized intersection. Because I know that, and also we had talked in that meeting with the lobbyist on the state's commitment to purchase this old Shides building. If we do the work to straighten it out, I think there was a preliminary discussions that if we in-house corrected the road, that they would actually condemn and go through the process and purchase that building for condemnation, to allow us to straighten out that signalize properly that intersection. I think those are crucial issues there, rather than a study that I'm not sure will ever go anywhere.
Well, it's called a study, but it's actually a plan. Last we heard about it, that they were going to try and take some significant steps starting this summer, at least the striping. But that plan also includes curbing and widening the right-of-way in front of what's the courthouse area right now, so that you have 2 lanes all the way to that intersection. Right now, as you know, that part of Paseo goes from a 2-lane to a 1-lane, and so there is, there's a well-documented the traffic problem there. So that corridor study involves that. It's called a study simply because that's sort of the way it's gone forward, but it does involve improvements, not major construction improvements, but those kinds of improvements on the right-of-way.
Maybe we should include that as part of maybe a 3-tier, the signalized intersection on by Rio Grande Ace, the signalized intersection on Sigler, and then all as part of a plan, the major plan, restriping and the
Sure.
The T1 Albright.
If I could give you a little history on that one-way pair.
Yeah, you were
One-way pair is called. Yeah.
We did a study, and actually improvements that were done to Paseo Pueblo Sur from the high school down to McDonald's were part of that study. But if they go back through their records, which would be now 12, 15 years ago, they actually did an engineering for 4 lanes through that section, and did 4 lanes from Placitas North through El Prado, 4 lanes, which is part of that corridor which has to take place. As part of that, what came out of that was a signalization on, to the Pueblo on the north side. Came out of that study, and that's what.
Hale Creek.
And they did that, and then they did some widening, but not enough. So there is some preliminary studies already done, all they have to do is dust them off. I think I agree with the mayor that part of our request from the highway department is twofold. One is not 2 lights, but 3 lights, the light at the courthouse.
Yeah.
The signalization change and realignment of the road at Smith's, and then S to S. But along with that, one of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of weeks on Paseo Pueblo Sur is the roadway is deteriorated. We've got trenches on the roadway. And so I think one of our requests to the highway department would be to resurface from where they finished off of the plaza all the way out to Ranchos, and get that, either milled and resurfaced or something. But I don't think that this spring that roadway is going to support itself.
There's potholes all over.
Well, we will carry those requests to the Department of Transportation anyway. The intent here is that as the budget is being made at the legislature, all of the departments have projects. Some are 4 years down the road. Some might be coming forward. And so all this does is tell our lobbyist that where he can, should there be an opportunity, if he could advance these projects into more current years, that he should try to do so. So all the other projects that you're talking about, we could very well add them to the list, so that as those projects are in the hopper, and we could help the Department of Transportation get the funds to move them forward, then that's what he knows that he'll try to be advocating for. So I'll make sure and add those to the list. So we're talking here the traffic squaring up the intersection at Siler and Paseo Sur, and also.
And in that Siler, we also need to talk to the owners of Smith's, because they committed, and we'll have to look at the record when we approved the gas station, that they would commit to assisting the town in the realignment of that. So what does that mean? It's pretty subjective. We want to see what they're willing to kick into that. Then we're talking also the Zia, is that Zia Street? What is that?
It's Siler.
The one by Sentinel Bank.
Oh, yes, here.
Tiwa. That one there, I believe, Sentinel Bank is also willing to assist the town in the landscaping and contributing some funds to properly landscape that. The CEO mentioned that to me.
Okay.
And if we can let NMDOT that we're at the table, and
Okay.
they just need to put the signalization there, and then where Rio Grande Ace is at. I think those 3 there. I know that we were successful. I think the one where Rio Grande Ace, where we're going to have a lot of leverage, is that we've put local funds. And the state likes to see local funds as part of their improvement of their roads. Where we were successful, Public Works and I was when we fixed all the drainage issue at the intersection of the plaza. We told them, look, we're going to be fixing all of this, and we have a deteriorated road up north, and then El Prado, the road is great. So can you, during this mobilization, can you guys fix this? And they agreed to do that because they saw our commitment to fixing that middle of that road. I think we spent over $100,000 in that intersection, correct, Marietta? So I think if we can set up a meeting with, and now I think we're at a really good position, because Representative Gonzalez is the head, I believe, of the Transportation Committee. Is he taxation revenue or transportation? I believe transportation. Who's that?
Yes, he has. Actually, he's been there for years. Actually, yes.
Yeah, he was on the transportation committee.
And I think he's so. I'll work closely with the lobbyist on those issues.
Okay.
If it's okay with the council. Sure. Councilmember Silva.
While you're working closely with the lobbyists, one other thing that I think that's important to point out is not only the 3 intersections that we've identified, but also along Paseo Pueblo Norte, we have sidewalks that do not comply with any ADA requirements whatsoever. It's hard enough to walk along there by yourself, much less a wheelchair getting by. So I think that if we can ask them to look at that area as well, along Taos End and in that corridor right there.
And I think the way we position that is we let them know that we were able to get stimulus funds to get the sidewalks, correct, Marietta, from Subway all the way to Sagebrush. And that was an initiative that we accomplished, and now we just need to complement those sidewalks. What they did in El Prado and do it in our historic district.
Okay.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Mr. Mayor, this one may cause some controversy because of the fact that I know the governor has said she doesn't want to implement any more new taxes. And it's something that I've kind of kicked around a little bit and discussed a little bit with the manager. And to present to you, my fellow council members, and I know I've talked to the mayor about it a little bit also. But an implementation, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the Holy Cross securing a different funding source. And the one thing that I've looked at and talked briefly with the hospital CEO as well is implementation of a sugar tax. And that sugar tax would be implemented on sugary beverages. Now, and I say that, I guess, because it can work two different ways, is that one, tax benefit to the city, but also a funding source for the hospital that would address awareness of diabetes and diabetes research. And, you know, just with all the health problems that northern New Mexico typically carries, I don't think it'll curb buying the stuff, but I think as long as there's something there, and I've spoken with Representative Gonzalez, who's more than happy to carry the flagship of it, as long as we propose some type of, you know, language for it as to how we would handle it. And, you know, I think now's probably a good time. I know this went to the legislature a few years back and died, obviously because of lobbyists, but the more and more that we become aware of health statistics and health awareness, I think Taos is typically at the forefront of being a pretty healthy community. So I'd like to see that kind of go through as far as through the legislative process. Like I said, I don't know how it's going to sit with the governor as far as tackling the tax hurdle, but that's one thing I'd like to see. So Oscar, if we can work on something to get some type of language written up so that it goes into this session, and maybe it'll get in early enough that we can.
Is this a 60-day session or 30-day?
60.
It's a 60-day. So why don't we do this rather than, you know, I think the best thing to do is pulse some of the key players at the legislature and see if we can garner support for it first, and then I think we can adopt a resolution from the council if the council wants to do that. But I want to make sure that that it's not going to be stopped in its tracks, because the governor has made it very clear that she doesn't want any new taxes. However, it makes sense. The rationale behind it makes sense. I know a few years ago we tried to implement a liquor tax that would help fund sports destinations, like sports activities in the communities, and it fell dead. There was just no support on it, and so it was tough to get that done. And I think it was, how many years ago?
2 years.
2 years ago, yeah. And some of the key players that are in these committees, it'll stop in committee, and ours was stopped in committee. So I think that's what we'd have to do, is look at what committees they would have to go through, let them know that we're proposing that. If they're receptive, then take it to the next step, if that's okay with the council.
And I do think, you know, the other thing being is that this has been passed more recently in other parts of the country. So I think a model as to how it's been undertaken, how it's been worked out and worked through.
Philadelphia, New York.
Yeah, so, you know, I guess the thing that I would look at is just, you know, strictly health benefit as far as, you know, again, for the hospital's funding source.
Now, just to make clear, what my intention with this was for there to be a clear and transparent communication to our lobbyist that these are our priorities. So should there be opportunities for him to move them forward, that he would go ahead and do that. Now, if it turns out that sugar tax gets some traction, then we would, you bet, we'll be doing everything necessary. If it requires a resolution, we'll certainly be coming back to the council and ask for that resolution. So all this is just sort of a general game plan for our lobbyist and also for the staff, should we ever, you know, be in front of people who make decisions at the legislature, so we'll know this is what's a top priority for you. So for example, the question of the signalization and the sidewalks, et cetera, we're going to do that anyway. We're going to go straight to Department of Transportation and tell them that we want to go forward with that. This one, the resolution though was more of just a direction to our lobbyists that if you find opportunities to move these things forward, move them forward, and you bet we'll follow up as we need to as it goes forward. So we'll be doing this now. So every year, as the legislature goes forward, we'll be communicating to our lobbyists what your priorities are. And so if the sugar tax is one of those, then I will take that as direction to include that in this resolution so that our lobbyist knows if he can move this thing forward, that it is a priority of the council.
Mr. Mayor, one of the other things, in some of the boards and committees that I sit on, one being NALEO and the other one being the Regional Coalition, which is chaired with Mayor Cos, I brought it up to them also, and they are in support of it. So, I mean, I think if we can garner more support out of the municipalities as well, it may hold a little more weight. I mean, because we are the voice of our constituents, and I welcome input from the constituency base also with regards to this, so.
And that's something that we would also have to make sure that we can get support from the New Mexico Municipal League. If it has a chance, it has to be endorsed by the Municipal League and the Association of Counties. So if we can do that, we could put that in the, just in the approval that we are looking at this sugar tax, if it gets traction to go to the next steps on it.
Okay.
On number 2, I would just like to, since that's not necessarily, it's more of a final budget approval for the legislative process, just to make it very clear, as you're mentioning, just identify what we mean. Identify New Mexico Department of Transportation highway initiatives for the town of Taos, such as the corridor study and the things that we mentioned tonight.
Right.
That way he's very clear what we're wanting to advance on for the Department of Transportation, because that's more of a internal workings that we're gonna have to work with the Department of Transportation, so when they prepare their budget, is that gonna be a priority, or where is it in those tiers?
Yeah, and that's where our lobbyist helps. In other words, to get them the resources to move those projects up into more current years than the back burners.
What you're talking is very legislative, where we're gonna, the Holy Cross Hospital, for that tax, those are all where we're gonna have to get key stakeholders, senators, not only our senators, but abroad from the state to get behind those. Okay, so I would entertain a motion as expressed there.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay. Next, we skipped item, we already took care of item 8A. Next, we have items from mayor and council. Is there any items at this time? Want to discuss?
I have none.
None?
I have none.
Not entertain a motion. Just want to let everyone know that at the next meeting, I did say that we were going to be very open and transparent. We're going to be discussing in depth several items regarding the command center move. So, and I did mention that I was going to allow the public comment, because they did express that they wanted to comment on those. So I guess for time constraints, make sure that the agenda isn't too lengthy, because we don't know how much citizen participation.
There'll be 2 main areas that you'll see a lot of activity on. One is the Emergency Communication Center, and the other will also be our 5-year financial forecast, as well as our mid-year budget adjustments. Now, just to be sure, there'll be 4 items that'll come to the council. One is the report by, the first stage of the report by our consultant, Mr. Lake, on his recommendations, seeing the current operations as well as the Kit Carson. So there'll be that report. There'll also be a department performance review of the reviews that you've seen with all the other departments, but this one focused on the emergency communication center. You'll also see an item to approve or at least communicate to the council the current draft of the joint powers agreement that we have right now. An updated joint powers agreement. We have one right now that is pretty much dormant in our opinion. And then the fourth item will be to bring to you the grant by the Department of Finance Administration for the public safety access point or 911 equipment, that $362,000 grant. We received it last month, and so we need to bring it to the council for authorization. So those 4 items will come to the council. Mayor, if I may, I do have some other things I do want to communicate to the council in public here. And one is, if you see people from the police department and our building facilities department going into the planning department with measures and looking at things, it's because I've directed the staff to look at the possibility of relocating the police department to town hall. Just looking at it preliminarily, just looking at the square footage, et cetera, it seems that we could move them in there and give them certainly better quarters than what they have, and more space. And I think in the process also save on the electricity that we spend right now over there. The plan is that the police department would move there and that the emergency communications activities or operations would stay where they are right now. It is expensive to move them one place or the other place, so they would stay where they are right now. Depending on what the plans look like, if it seems like it's feasible for us to be able to go there at minimal cost or low cost, I may be coming back to you then with that item to go ahead and move them in there. If it's a more substantial cost, I'll be coming back to you in the budget process for the resources to relocate them next fiscal year. Anyway, we are considering doing that right now.
Just members of council, I did see the plan, or just preliminary discussions, and it makes all the sense to me. It just to utilize town hall more efficiently and effectively. I think it's a great idea, and I want to see that plan in more depth, because initially what you mentioned to me just makes sense. Yes. Want to brief the council also on just let them know that I did go to the commission meeting along with Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez and our manager. It is the first meeting that the commission had, and just to offer our goodwill to the new commission. There's a lot of issues. We are their biggest district, their most populated district, I guess, if you will, and it only makes sense for the town and the county to work together to resolve many issues on behalf of our constituents. In this economic times, it makes sense to combine resources. So we reiterated that message, that we look forward to meeting with them, to explaining our issues to them, so that they can hopefully understand our issues that we're in as issues in District 1 arise. And we also committed to them that we would be all ears to listen to their concerns when they have concerns that affect this district and the whole community as a whole. I also have scheduled a meeting with Taos Pueblo to meet the new administration. I'm not sure when that meeting will take place. It's something that I've done since I've been mayor. Every time the Pueblo changes their administration, I make it a point to just have a sit down and just discuss some of the priorities that they have and what they would like to accomplish, since their term is only a year. And we do have some outstanding issues that we still need to resolve. Even though we've resolved a huge one, given that being the airport, there is still some other issues that we need to work closely with the Pueblo. So just wanted to brief the council on that.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one thing I would like to just put out there. I got a new phone, and somehow my email blast went out that the State of the Town address was like every day this week and next week. So just to clarify, it is January 24th at 5:30. So I'm sure we'll make it up on the next meeting also, but just to let everybody know.
Thank you.
Well, I've been doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So,
Mr. Mayor, Council Member Silver.
I just want to wish everybody Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year, and it's going to be a challenging year, but we're committed to making it the best we can. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and Happy New Year again. And thank you to the Boy Scouts for being here. Thank you very much. We really appreciated your company. I'd be happy to set up a meeting with all of you. I believe so. I think Matthew Spriggs, his son was it. Yeah, so anytime you get new members, I'd be happy to meet with them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.